I'm going to talk about the International Lunar Decade. This is a concept that was also born with Photonika because I published an article in January of 2014 on the topic, and it has taken on some life. Let me go back. All right, so we'll talk about just a few things, and we touched on this.
It's more powerful now. You need to reach more. You need to more powerful.
See, where you're, yeah, so, basically, the moon is a stepping stone to the universe. There are barriers, there are game changers, and implications of what that happens. What this all means for Latvia is another issue that I address. So, the stepping stones for the universe, the moon is nearby. It's very difficult to get to Mars. People have been trying to get to Mars for decades, and it's always 30 years out. The moon, we can get to it for, what is it, 2-3 days, and there's a lot we can do there. And we will touch on that briefly. So the barriers, and there are some real and there are some imagined. Right now, to develop space, it's government. It's huge, big projects, multi-year, decadal, and at the same time, you've got politicians with their 1-year, half-year perspective, and there's a lack of public understanding and support. So what we're trying to address with the International Lunar Decade are these barriers. So there is a paradigm change underway. And basically, we're looking at infrastructure on the moon and in cislunar space that will dramatically lower the cost of doing things in space. Part of the infrastructure comes from fuel depots in space and also working from the moon because there's water on the moon. Some theorize there's billions of tons of water near the poles. But there are other materials there, and one of them that excites me particularly is that from the lunar regolith, we can manufacture solar arrays, and if you can do that, then you change the equation dramatically. The materials are all there, and in fact, I can share a presentation. There's a series of patents to go from the regolith material to the solar array, and now we just need to develop the technologies. But once that happens, and then there's many other things. 3D printing in space from in situ resource utilization, from basically lunar regolith. The frequency of flights, if you launch the shuttle every 6 months, it costs, all the thousands of people still have to be paid. If you launch every week, it's the same thousands of people, but you spread it across many, many more flights. So the costs go down dramatically just by increasing the number of flights. And right now, Elon Musk is working on reusability. I believe we'll see that happen within a year, and that will change the game also dramatically. So we're looking at, and then also this one is very important. You know, you've learned about CubeSats, nanosats, picosats, and now we're looking at lunar cubes, so that a small country like Latvia could send a vehicle, a probe to the moon, do research on the moon, and that technology is also becoming available. And then we looked at ways to get around this problem. I will be in a conference in a couple weeks in Washington. We're trying to do this. We're trying to get leadership interested in the idea of this lunar decade, where we work on the technologies and we work on the policy, because they work together. Unless you can, in effect, have rights to some portion of the moon to process the materials, nobody's going to invest. So that has to be developed at the same time that the technologies, and that's all part of the lunar decade. let's go on to this. So there's many things going on. The International Space Exploration Coordination Group, that does include Ukraine. Are our Ukrainian colleagues still here?
Yeah, like just now.
They have left. Okay, that's a group of four. There's one representative. SEC has 14 members right now. And these are the people that have serious capabilities to develop rockets. Latvia could become a member, okay? But our thinking right now, this is our International Lunar Decade Working Group, is that this would be maybe a key vehicle to launch the International Lunar Decade. Because the countries, the companies, whatever, that can get to the moon are involved. It's a non-binding structure. It includes, of course, Russia, Japan, India, United States, ESA, and some European countries. There's also the International Industrial Group that has Boeing, Roscosmos, and some other companies. Very important is the Google X Prize. There are 6 finalists. I believe Ukraine also had some Google X Prize competitors. Very important because this idea with the Google X Prize is that you get a private company to launch a craft to the moon that will then take 500 meters and take pictures and so forth. So you have to have either a rover or a hopper or something like this. And this is all underway. So the inspiration for this is the International Geophysical Year, 1957 and 1958. And basically, IGY launched the space age. We had Russia, the Soviet Union, and the United States launched satellites. And there were hundreds of initiatives that emerged in 1957-58, many of which have survived to this day. So we're looking at launching ILD in 2017, which is the 60th anniversary. I've been spending some time right now with the International Year of Light. Similar idea, some groups started it, and then eventually now it's a global effort that includes hundreds of organizations in every country. So we have a pathway how we can do this, and the steps.
That means we will have a label of Fotonika LV in this initiation group.
Oh yes, yeah, absolutely. Well, in fact, since the origins are, well, we could say in effect here, however, we're tiny. So right now we got to get the big boys involved, and they can run with it, but then we're still part of it, okay? That's the idea. So now, if we can get NASA, but to get NASA interested in this, where the American president said 2 years ago, we've been to the moon, we've done that, we got to go further. And George Bush before him said, we got to go to Mars, okay? So what we need to figure out is how they can understand that going to the moon, which is the original idea of von Braun, is you go to the moon first, and you develop infrastructure, and then you go to Mars, okay? And in fact, the whole idea is not to have a mission to a place, but to actually develop infrastructure so there's industrial capacity off the planet, and then people can start living in space. So here's the idea. The program brings spacefaring nations on Earth, and spacefaring is going to be redefined. Latvia can be spacefaring. Ukraine is spacefaring. You know, if Latvia could send a craft to the moon, and South Africa, you studied and you worked in South Africa. South Africa has a moon project now. They're looking at launching a craft to the moon, and it's called the Africa Moon Project. So the focus is on the moon, space between Earth and moon, and look at the infrastructure, energy systems, telecommunications hubs. And then parallel to that is the space policy that grants clear rights to commercial activity beyond Earth orbit. Right now, clear rights do not exist. The efforts in this regard stopped at the end of 1970, the 70s. So in effect, space policy has been frozen for decades. And so we're hoping to get this addressed as well. So it's not a moon first scheme.
Minutes or two.
10 minutes, oh, okay, tooling. So moon first, there's competition. There are people saying, let's go to Mars. So we got the Mars first people, and then we have asteroid people and others. So there's no consensus on it. The idea here is that by processing the in situ resources on the moon, the water, the solar arrays, we change the equation, because if you can make solar arrays and have solar power satellites in orbit, you can then you're entering $1 trillion market, and you're making, by actually beaming power to the Earth. Now, Japan has a plan to have 1 gigawatt of generating capacity in orbit by 2030. They had announced some time ago a $21 billion project. So the action plan, this is the International Lunar Decade Working Group. These are conferences. We're looking at having some reference to the International Lunar Decade at each one of these conferences. So right now we're players in some of them. A key conference where we need to have entry is the Committee on Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. This is the UN. Latvia is not currently a member. We have letters to the Foreign Ministry here. It's very simple to become a member. There is no €1 million payment. You simply say, we apply, it's endorsed by the government, and you say you will participate, and you become a member. And there are 77 members. Luxembourg is a member. Our neighbors are not. Estonia and Lithuania are not. But if we're members of COPUS, then I think we have a chance to become members of ISEC and other organizations. And then the idea of having the Riga Photonics Center as some kind of coordinating place is possible. Because the idea originated here. So even though we're small, we're not recognized globally as a space leader, I think we can have a role. So the benefits for Latvia, the idea, it originated here. There's potential for R&D projects, Horizon 2020, ESA, other partners, using every skill that we have. And right now, ILD, the focus of the twinning proposal, due May 7th. And with ILD, we can involve partners, actually many of our existing partners that work on laser ranging and other similar technologies. And but this would position us with €1 million for 3 years to actually engage people on this whole idea. So I think this can lead to many other projects. If this is eventually, if the ILD is funded as it should be, it's billions of dollars, and but if we've done these things, we will be positioned to take advantage of that future. So, COPUS meets then, Latvia needs to be a member. So far, no responses, no action, as we've seen in other things. You send letters to people and so forth, but it has to be accomplished, otherwise we're not a player. This is more important in my view than ESA, actually. It could result in more benefits to Latvia, but ESA is also important. So then there's the Space Summit, and there we are. Any questions?